Hey there, welcome into the show. This is the San Francisco 49ers Report. My name is Chase Sr. Hope everybody out there is having a fantastic Tuesday. We have a great and loaded show on the docket. And here's everything that's coming up over the next several minutes. And thanks for hanging out here with us. We have a new Brandon Aiyuk trade update. Things are really going to pick up steam over the next couple of days, as we talked about yesterday. And I have some more information as to why that's going to be the case here coming up just around the corner in case you missed that information on Monday. And then on the back half of the show, topic number 2, should the 49ers, given right now they have a bottom 5 defensive line, they need another edge rusher, trade for Bryce Huff to reunite him with Robert Saleh, as Huff 2 years ago had 10 sacks under the new Niners defensive coordinator when Saleh was the head coach of the New York Jets. And this past year with Philadelphia, it did not work out for Huff. Philadelphia may have won the Super Bowl. Huff may have gotten $34 million in guaranteed money, but he barely played for that number 1 rated Eagles defense. Let's begin on the Brandon Aiyuk front. Is a Brandon Aiyuk trade unlikely? The 49ers are going to have to make a decision by April 1st, given some of the fine printing in his contract. Aiyuk has a 2025 option bonus due of nearly $23 million, which fully guarantees on April 1st if he's on the roster. He has a 2026 option bonus due of nearly $25 million, which is also due on April 1st. So if the Niners want to trade Brandon Aiyuk, it has to be over the next few days. As we know, Niners general manager John Lynch at the NFL Combine, when I asked him about this directly, he did not shoot down the possibility of the Niners trading away BA. Here's what Dianna Russini had to say today on her podcast alongside Chase Daniel. I don't get the sense that a Brandon Aiyuk trade is a reality. I'm sure the 49ers would like to trade Aiyuk because of the finances. We'll see what happens. I don't expect anything. Of course, this time last year, we were talking about the Aiyuk contract saga. There was that hold-in where he did not participate in any training camp practices, did not play in the preseason. Then he came back for week 1 after signing that 4-year, $120 million contract with $76 million in guaranteed money. More than $40 million of that was guaranteed by April of this year. And it ended up being a disaster for San Francisco because Aiyuk, when he did play, looked out of shape, didn't have good production. He got into that practice back and forth with Kyle Shanahan where he got undressed on the practice field because he was wearing the wrong shorts. He looked nothing like the player that he looked like in 2023 when he broke out and was a second-team All-Pro. And then against the Kansas City Chiefs, he took that awful hit to his knee and suffered multiple torn ligaments, missed the rest of the year. And now looking ahead to 2025, we're not sure when Brandon Aiyuk is going to come back. Here's a look at the Aiyuk remaining contract. And the Niners structured this in a way where the cap hit the next 2 years, it's salvageable. It's not bad, right? $11 million in 2025, $16.2 million in 2026. Base salary just north of $1 million in both of those 2 years. But then the base salary and the cap hit is enormous in 2027 and in 2028. A $42.2 million cap hit in 2027 and a $44+ million cap hit in 2028 with the base salaries at 27+ and 29+. There is a potential out in 2027, but the Niners would be hit with the dead cap charge of $9.2 million. So if Dianna Russini is saying that a Brandon Aiyuk trade is unlikely, which is what I've said here on the show, because of the contract and him coming off that bad knee injury, the Niners will hope and pray that he can return to his 2023 form, where he was one of the top wide receivers in the game. And what's so unfortunate about what happened to Aiyuk last year, how he carried himself, how he handled the contract negotiation, he made things publicly messy. And then when it was time for him to play after he had gotten paid, he looked terrible and he was out of shape. The body language was awful. And it really put a dark cloud over a great developmental story for San Francisco and Aiyuk himself. He gets drafted in 2020 out of Arizona State. Some people thought it was a reach for the Niners to take him in that first round. That was the COVID offseason. There were no preseason games. There were limited training camp practices. Yet Aiyuk still led the team in receiving with 748 yards and 60 catches with 5 touchdowns in only 12 games. But then he got better in 2021, and he was able to recover after being in the doghouse to start the year. Still had a fine season. Helped the Niners overcome that 3-5 start. In 2022, that was his first true breakout year. A career-high 78 catches, career-high 1,015 receiving yards, 8 touchdowns, also a career high. And then the real big breakout campaign came in 2023 when he was trying to set himself up to get paid route running, deep threat, picking up yards after the catch, sure hands, clutch grabs, 75 catches, 1,300 yards, 17.9 yards per catch. That was second in the National Football League with 7 touchdowns. You're thinking, man, every year that he's been in the league, he's gotten better and better and better and better. He signs that contract and ended up being a huge disappointment in 2024. It was really part of the season-long awful storyline that we saw for the San Francisco 49ers, and the knee injury now has us wondering, what type of player is Brandon Aiyuk going to be? Is that contract going to end up being an awful one for San Francisco? They seem to regret it already because they're trying to move him, but clearly not a lot of takers because no team wants to pay a wide receiver that much money, most likely, give up draft capital and not know what the health status is, nor do they know when he's going to be able to play in 2025. Now, as part of this, most likely, the 49ers are probably floating some of this stuff out there, hoping that a team calls the Niners, knowing those roster bonuses are due for this year and next year. But either way, going to be an interesting next few days. So what would you do with Brandon Aiyuk? T for trade, K for keep. Join the conversation down in the comment section. You are the Niners general manager in this instance. Still to come here, should the Niners trade for Eagles edge rusher Bryce Huff, who really took off under Robert Saleh with the Jets in 2023? That's coming up just around the corner, but it's the offseason, but Niner fans never sleep. If you want to rep your team and get a new Niners jersey for the upcoming 2025 campaign, get yours today. Chatsports.com/49jersey. Current players, legendary Niner players, all of those jerseys are available, from George Kittle to Nick Bosa to Joe Montana and Jerry Rice, all thanks to our friends at Fanatics. Of course, plenty of more jersey options also available if you use that link down below, chatsports.com/49jersey. All right, let's get to this. Could we see a Bryce Huff, Robert Saleh reunion, and should the Niners trade for the Eagles pass rusher who was a big bust as a free agency signing for Howie Roseman and the Eagles this time last year? As we know, the Niners are in need of pass rushing help. They have a bad defensive line as far as pass rushing talent and overall depth, and they're looking to remake their defensive line. Could they remake it by reuniting Bryce Huff with Robert Saleh? This is a player who the Jets picked up as a UDFA out of Memphis in 2020, and after that 2020 season, he really started to find his groove year by year. In 2021, under Saleh's watch, only played 9 games, 2 sacks, 8 quarterback hits, and 17 pressures. In year 2, takes a little bit of a leap. 3.5 sacks in 14 games, 10 quarterback hits, and 36 pressures. And then in 2023, he had his breakout season. Double-digit sacks with 10, 21 quarterback hits, 67 pressures, which was 15th among edge rushers, and he played under 50% of the snaps with the New York Jets in those 17 games. And so the Eagles saw that. They saw a player who had been progressing and improving and getting better. They gave him $34 million in guaranteed money, and they were in need of pass rushing help last offseason going into 2024, considering how things ended for them, losing 6 of 7 in 2023. They thought Huff was going to be the answer. But right from the jump, Eagles defensive coordinator Vic Fangio wasn't about it. And Bryce Huff barely played in 2024. Now, he missed some time because of torn ligaments in his wrist, but he did nothing compared to what the Eagles' expectations were for him. 2.5 sacks, 13 tackles, 3 TFLs, 1 forced fumble, 0 fumble recoveries, and he was inactive for Super Bowl 59. And the Eagles' actions have spoken pretty loudly as it pertains to Bryce Huff. They signed him to this huge deal, yet in training camp, he wasn't running with the ones. In the preseason, he was playing deep into those preseason games, not what you expect from a big-ticket free agent splash acquisition like Huff was, did not play in the Super Bowl. And so far this offseason, what have the Eagles done? They've signed Azeez Ojulari to a 1-year deal, Josh Uche to a 1-year deal. They really like Jalix Hunt, who was out snapping Bryce Huff in the playoffs, and a big reason why Huff was not active against Kansas City in Super Bowl 59. And Nolan Smith, he had a breakout year in 2024 with 6.5 sacks and 4 more in the postseason. So the future is really uncertain for Huff. I'll tell you this, I'm intrigued about a Niners trade for him because he'd be a good scheme fit for what Robert Saleh wants to do. Saleh knows the player very well. Huff had his best year with Saleh running the defense, and his numbers last year, according to Pro Football Focus, in limited snaps, 182 of them, it wasn't all that bad. 17 hurries, 20 pressures, 2.5 sacks, and he graded out pretty well, according to Pro Football Focus. 68.3 overall grade, 68.2 pass rush grade, and run defense has never been his strength. Wasn't great at it, didn't excel with it with the New York Jets, but that grade was a 60.2. So Bryce Huff was in the green there in all of those categories, and I think that he would benefit from a change of scenery. Last year with Philadelphia, he lost his confidence. He talked openly about that. He wasn't used to not being a part of the edge rushing rotation, especially after getting a bag from Philadelphia. But he became an unknown man for that number 1 Eagles defense. And so him coming to San Francisco, I think, would be intriguing for Robert Saleh. And I think Saleh would benefit from having another edge rusher with pass rushing talent opposite of Nick Bosa, and Huff would benefit as well. Because look at this Niners starting defensive line as of right now. This isn't good enough. This is a bottom 5 defensive line in the sport. And I get it, the Niners are trying to build through the NFL draft, but there's a lot of pressure on San Francisco to hit on this 2025 draft class because their defensive line and offensive line is so thin where they're counting on multiple draftees to be highly impactful as rookies right from the jump. There's a lot of risk with that. But Yeturgos Matos, Jordan Elliott, Evan Anderson, and Nick Bosa, that defensive line is not good enough. And so the Niners would greatly benefit too from bringing in a player like Bryce Huff. Now, when he signed that deal, it was a 3-year, $51.1 million contract, $17 million per year, $34 million in guaranteed money. None of that money is guaranteed after this upcoming season. He is set to be an unrestricted free agent in 2027. He has a very manageable cap hit in 2025 of $7.5 million. If the Eagles were to trade him pre-June 1, it would be a $12.9 million dead cap charge, and they would only save $5.3 million. The thing with the Niners, too, I think a trade would be very, very affordable because I think Philadelphia just wants to get out of that contract to a certain degree, and they're very confident in their young players in Hunt and Smith and their free agent pickups in Josh Uche and Azeez Ojulari. Matt Bowen of ESPN said this about a Bryce Huff trade to San Francisco. With quarterback Brock Purdy set to cash in on a new deal, Kyle Shanahan's team had to move on from core players. The Niners said goodbye to Deebo Samuel, Dre Greenlaw, Talanoa Hufanga, and more. However, the 49ers could make a trade with Philadelphia for edge rusher Bryce Huff, who had 10 sacks in 2023 for the Jets under new Niners defensive coordinator Robert Saleh. I really only think that it would cost just a 5th-round pick for the Niners to bring in Huff, and I gave you that cap hit a little bit earlier. You can absorb that, and the Niners have 2 5th-round picks. So this is my trade idea. Niners get Bryce Huff, Eagles get a 2025 5th-round pick, 160 overall. They get out of that contract, And the Niners get a talented pass rusher who hopefully can come alive as he teams back up with Robert Saleh. Would you make that trade? Y for yes, N for no. Once again, you can be the general manager here on the program. You can run the show for San Francisco.